mankind took to the skies in those first tentative powered flights, the pace of progress was staggering. The passion for flight spread around the world. Early aviators applied newfound knowledge to flying farther, higher, and faster. Within a span of just 40 years and 2 world wars, advances in aviation took us from motorized gliders to jet propulsion and rocket-powered planes, and even the first ballistic missile. It was a dramatic, fast-paced, life-changing time for many. But few could have even dreamed of the amazing changes and towering accomplishments that were just over the horizon. With the dawning of the atomic age, science and technology took center stage. America's increasingly advanced research into aeronautics produced a remarkable series of aircraft, the X-planes. In 1947, the rocket-powered X-1 was the first plane to officially break the sound barrier, called Mach 1. 9 years later, the X-2 passed Mach 3. Then the amazing X-15 took to the skies. In less than 1 year, it rewrote the record books 3 times, passing Mach 4, then Mach 5, and finally Mach 6. But speed wasn't the X-15's only mission. Ultimately, 2 flights would soar high enough, as high as 67 miles, across the boundary into space. The Soviet Union's dramatic 1957 launch of Sputnik, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth, had stunned the free world. After some embarrassing failures, the U.S. responded with the launch of Explorer 1, and the space race was on. But in 1961, the Soviet Union was first again, the first to put a human being into orbit. The first 2 manned flights by the United States sent astronauts far higher than the X-15 and officially into space, but by design, not into orbit. Even so, President Kennedy boldly raised the stakes, turning the space race into a race to the moon. It was almost a year after the first Soviet orbital flight until the U.S. put its first astronaut into orbit. But America was back in the race. Through the decade of the 60s, the U.S. and the USSR expanded their manned spacecraft programs. The 1-man Mercury spacecraft was succeeded by the 2-man Gemini craft, and the Soviets introduced their larger Voskhod ship. The competing programs achieved many more firsts that were necessary to work in space and navigate to the moon. The U.S. program then graduated to the 3-man Apollo craft, along with the spider-like lunar module and the massive Saturn V rocket, culminating in the historic Apollo 11 mission and the first manned landing on the moon. Followed by 5 more lunar missions that greatly expanded our understanding of our closest celestial neighbor. In 1969, the same year that Apollo 11 landed on the moon, President Nixon authorized the development of the Space Shuttle, orbital ferry boat that would be history's first semi-reusable spacecraft. The shuttle can trace its roots in part to the X-15, with its demonstrated ability to return to Earth from the edge of space, land horizontally on the ground, and then fly again. Other design influences came from a series of non-powered drop tests of odd, wingless vehicles called lifting bodies. The prototype for the space shuttle, christened Enterprise, and today on display before you, was built specifically to perform similar glide and landing tests. Because it flew only within the atmosphere, Enterprise did not need the blanket of thermal tiles to protect it from the heat of re-entry, nor did it need its main rocket engines. In early tests, that area was covered by a tail cone to reduce turbulence and drag. After flight tests, Enterprise was mated to the rest of the shuttle's components to undergo vertical vibration tests and for launch training at the Kennedy Space Center. The space shuttle operations began with the launch of the Columbia orbiter. Yes, the shuttle truly had wings. Now it was a space plane. Years of service, America's shuttle orbiters flew 135 missions. They launched numerous satellites and interplanetary probes, retrieved many others, and even repaired a few, notably the Hubble telescope. They ferried crew and equipment to the first ever modular space station, the Soviet Mir. The shuttles then turned to the task of building the International Space Station, transporting and assembling its modules, servicing them, and rotating crew to and from the station. Technology from the shuttle program has quietly improved our daily lives here on Earth, too. The CMOS chips, developed for low-light photography, found their way into many cell phone cameras and webcams. The aerogels used to insulate the shuttle's hyper-cold fuels turned up in products ranging from home insulation to pain-reducing shoe inserts. The LED lighting we now see and use every day was developed for onboard plant-growing experiments, and an artificial heart pump was based on the design of the shuttle's main engine fuel pumps. These are just a few of the advances in many categories that were a direct result of shuttle technologies. The final shuttle flight returned to Earth on July 21st, 2011, closing the books on a remarkable achievement. The Space Shuttle allowed us to develop impressive abilities to work in space and assemble entire orbiting structures. And the International Space Station, supported by 5 worldwide space agencies and 16 partner countries, testifies to the success of cooperation in space rather than competition. As together, we reach for new heights and new challenges.
Enterprise. To boldly go where no man has gone before.